Chapter 1: The Loss. The morning was crisp and gray, the kind of day where even the sun seemed reluctant to rise. Sophia sat by the window, her coffee untouched, her fingers nervously tapping the side of her mug. The quiet hum of her phone broke the stillness. She reached for it, expecting another of Ethan's daily good morning texts, but instead her heart sank as she saw the name, Officer Daniels. The voice on the other end was firm but gentle, as if accustomed to delivering life-altering news. "Miss Sophia Hayes? I'm sorry to inform you, but there's been an accident." Sophia's world shattered. The words that followed blurred into noise. Car crash, unidentified driver, confirm identity. Her mind fixated on one thing. Ethan is gone. Her fiancé, her partner, her future, it all vanished in an instant. Days turned into weeks of foggy, numbing grief. Sophia clung to Rachel, her best friend, who became her lifeline. Rachel's arms were always open, her words always soothing, as if she bore Sophia's pain as her own. They spent hours together, sorting through Ethan's belongings, laughing and crying at memories that felt like lifetimes ago. But even amid the warmth of Rachel's comfort, a nagging doubt festered in Sophia's mind. The police had been unable to recover Ethan's body, only remnants of the crash site. The flames consumed everything, they'd said. Still, the lack of closure left a hollow space in her heart, one that no amount of logic could fill. One stormy evening, Sophia sat on the couch clutching Ethan's favorite sweater. Her fingers traced its frayed edges as her thoughts spiraled. She hadn't been a perfect fiancée. There had been arguments, distance, moments where their love felt less like a spark and more like embers. But none of it had prepared her for this. The rain pounded against the windows as a photo of them together fell from her lap. She picked it up, a candid shot from their last vacation. Ethan's face smiled back at her, full of life and promises. She whispered into the emptiness, "Why did you leave me?" Rachel entered the room with 2 mugs of tea, her face shadowed with concern. "Soph, you need to stop torturing yourself. Ethan wouldn't want this for you." "Would he?" Sophia asked, her voice cracking. "Or would he want answers? Because that's all I want. Just answers." Rachel sighed, sitting beside her. "Sometimes we don't get answers. We only get what's left, and we have to make it enough." The months passed, and life dragged Sophia forward against her will. She buried herself in work, forced smiles at gatherings, and tried to feign normalcy. But in her quiet moments, the questions never stopped whispering. Why hadn't Ethan's death felt real? Why couldn't she let go? Chapter 2: Moving On. 2 years later, Sophia stood at the edge of her new apartment, overlooking the bustling city below. The skyline stretched wide and gleaming, a stark contrast to the sleepy, suffocating town she'd left behind. The move hadn't been easy, but Sophia was ready for something different, something that didn't constantly remind her of what she'd lost. Unpacking the last of her boxes, she found a photo frame buried beneath layers of bubble wrap. It was a picture of her and Rachel on a beach, laughing under the summer sun. She hadn't spoken to Rachel in months, not since their friendship had quietly eroded under the weight of Sophia's grief. Sophia traced the edges of the frame with her thumb before tucking it into a drawer. A new city, a new life, she thought. No ghosts allowed. The following weeks were a whirlwind of settling into her new job, meeting coworkers, and learning the city's rhythm. For the first time in years, Sophia felt like she could breathe. One Friday evening, she decided to treat herself. A quaint cafe just off the main street had caught her eye earlier, its warm lighting and quiet charm promising respite from the week's chaos. She ordered her favorite, an oat milk latte, and found a corner table to sink into. The sound of laughter drew her attention to a group at the far side of the cafe. A man's voice, low and familiar, carried over the hum of conversation. Sophia froze, her gaze locking onto a profile she knew better than her own reflection. The man turned and her stomach plummeted. It was Ethan. Sophia's mind raced, her hands gripping the edge of the table. She blinked, certain her eyes were playing tricks on her. But there he was, alive, laughing, and very much not the ghost she'd grieved for years. And he wasn't alone. Sitting beside him, her hand casually resting on his arm, was Rachel, her breath caught in her throat. The two of them looked happy, relaxed, like they belonged together. The air seemed to thin around her as her mind clawed for answers. How? Why? Sophia slid lower in her chair, unable to tear her eyes away. Rachel's fingers brushed Ethan's arm, and he leaned in close, whispering something that made her laugh. A gut-wrenching mixture of betrayal and confusion twisted in Sophia's chest. She waited until they left, her heart pounding as she followed them out onto the street. Keeping a safe distance, she watched them walk hand in hand, disappearing into a nearby townhouse. Her legs felt like lead, her mind a cacophony of rage, hurt, and disbelief. That night, sleep was a distant possibility. Sophia paced her small apartment, replaying what she'd seen. Her Ethan, was alive. And Rachel, the friend who had once held her through her darkest moments, had lied to her. The betrayal cut deeper than she thought possible. But Sophia wasn't the same woman she'd been 2 years ago. This time, she wasn't going to drown in unanswered questions. She was going to get her answers, no matter what it took. At Chapter 3, Discovery, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about what she'd seen. Every memory of Ethan and Rachel twisted in her mind like a cruel joke. The way Rachel had held her while she cried, the whispered promises of friendship, they were all lies. And Ethan, the man she had loved with every fiber of her being, had discarded her as if she were nothing. But why? That single question consumed her. There had to be a reason Ethan had faked his death, and Sophia was determined to uncover it. She wouldn't rest until she had the truth. The next morning, Sophia parked across the street from the townhouse where she had seen Ethan and Rachel. From behind the wheel, she watched as Ethan left for work, dressed in a sharp suit, his movements casual and confident. Sophia followed at a distance, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Ethan stopped at a downtown office building and disappeared inside. Sophia took a deep breath and stepped out of her car. If she wanted answers, she'd have to be bold. Inside the building, she approached the receptionist, her heart pounding. "Hi," she said with a forced smile. "I'm here to drop something off for Ethan Carter." The receptionist didn't even look up. "Third floor, Carter Industries." Industries? Sophia blinked in surprise. Ethan had never mentioned owning a business. With a quick thank you, she made her way to the elevator. The name on the door of the third-floor suite confirmed it. Carter Industries. A successful-looking startup logo gleamed on the glass. Sophia lingered long enough to catch a glimpse of Ethan inside, talking to a team of employees. The man she saw wasn't the Ethan she remembered, the struggling artist who had dreamed of selling his first painting. This Ethan exuded authority and power. It was as if he had become a completely different person. Later that day, Sophia turned her attention to Rachel. She scrolled through Rachel's social media, searching for clues. The posts told a carefully curated story, smiling vacation photos, intimate dinners, and polished captions that painted the picture of a perfect life. There was no trace of the past, no mention of the pain Sophia had endured, no indication that Rachel had ever lost Ethan. But one post caught her eye. A picture of Rachel and Ethan at a charity gala, dated just a few months after Ethan's supposed death. Sophia stared at the photo, her chest tightening. Rachel had been with him all along. That evening, Sophia decided it was time to confront Rachel. She showed up unannounced at Rachel's door, her hands trembling with anger. When Rachel answered, her face fell, her expression morphing from surprise to guilt. "Sophia," Rachel said, her voice faltering, "what are you doing here?" Sophia stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I saw you. Both of you. Together." Rachel paled, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Sophia, I can explain." "Explain what?" Sophia snapped. "That the man I thought was dead, my fiancé, has been alive this entire time? That you, my best friend, have been with him?" Rachel closed the door, her hands trembling. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me," Sophia demanded, "because right now it feels like the two people I trusted most have been lying to me for years." Rachel sank into a chair, her face buried in her hands. "I didn't know at first," she whispered. "I swear, Sophia, when he disappeared, I thought he was dead, just like you, but then he came back." Sophia froze. "Came back? What does that even mean?" Rachel hesitated, her eyes brimming with tears. "He came to me months after the accident. He said he couldn't tell you the truth, that it was too dangerous. He begged me to keep it a secret." "Dangerous?" Sophia repeated, her voice rising. "What could possibly justify this?" Rachel shook her head. "I don't know everything, Soph, but Ethan swore he was protecting you. He said you'd understand one day." Sophia stepped back, her mind racing. "I don't believe you," she said, her voice trembling. "But I will find out the truth, and when I do, neither of you will be able to hide behind your lies anymore." Sophia stormed out, her heart pounding. The pieces didn't fit, but one thing was clear. Ethan had been lying to her for longer than she realized, and Rachel wasn't as innocent as she claimed. Whatever they were hiding, Sophia was determined to uncover it. Chapter 4: The Confrontation. Sophia paced outside the office building where Ethan worked, her breath visible in the cold morning air. She hadn't slept since her confrontation with Rachel. The pieces of the puzzle were scattered, and none of it made sense. But one thing was clear. If she wanted answers, she'd have to hear them directly from Ethan. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and marched inside. The receptionist barely looked up as Sophia made her way to the elevator. Her pulse quickened with every floor, and by the time she reached Ethan's office, her hands were shaking. Ethan was at his desk, engrossed in a conversation with a colleague. When Sophia stepped into the room, his head snapped up. For a moment, his face froze in shock before his expression hardened. "Everyone out," he said, his voice calm but firm. The other people in the room exchanged confused glances before filing out. The door clicked shut, leaving the two of them alone. Sophia stood her ground, glaring at the man she had once loved. "You didn't expect to see me, did you?" Ethan leaned back in his chair, his jaw tightening. "Sophia, this isn't the time." "No," she interrupted, her voice rising. "You don't get to decide when it's time. You've had years to explain yourself. Years while I mourned you, while I questioned everything I thought I knew. And now I find out you're alive? Living a perfect little life with Rachel?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his composed demeanor cracking. "I didn't have a choice." Sophia laughed bitterly. "A choice? You didn't have a choice, so you decided to fake your death? To let me believe you were gone? Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Ethan stood, his voice low and firm. "It wasn't about you, Sophia. It was never about you." Sophia flinched as his words hit her like a slap. "Never about me?" she repeated. "We were engaged, Ethan. We were supposed to spend our lives together. And you're telling me I didn't matter?" Ethan sighed, his shoulders slumping. "You mattered more than anything. That's why I had to leave." Sophia's anger flared again. "That doesn't make any sense. If you cared, you would have stayed. You would have talked to me, fought for us." He hesitated, as if weighing his next words carefully. "There are things you don't know. Things I couldn't tell you." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "Then tell me now." Ethan walked to the window, his back to her. "My family, they weren't what you thought they were. My father got involved in something dangerous, and when I tried to fix it, I became a target. They came after me, Sophia. They came after us." Sophia's heart pounded. "Us? What are you talking about?" He turned to face her, his expression grim. "They threatened you. They said if I didn't disappear, you'd be the one to pay the price. So I staged the accident. I thought if I was gone, you'd be safe." Sophia stared at him, disbelief coursing through her. "You expect me to believe that? That you were some kind of hero, sacrificing yourself for my safety? Then why, Rachel? Why not tell me the truth when it was over?" Ethan looked away, guilt flashing across his face. "It's not over, Sophia. It's never been over. And Rachel, she was supposed to keep an eye on you to make sure you were okay." Sophia's voice broke. "And somewhere along the way, she became your wife." Ethan didn't deny it. "It wasn't planned. It just happened." "Unbelievable," Sophia whispered. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "You didn't just betray me. You let me think I was crazy for holding on, for not letting go of you. And all the while, you were building a life with my best friend." Ethan took a step closer, his voice softening. "I never stopped caring about you, Sophia. Everything I did was to protect you." She held up a hand to stop him. "Don't. Don't you dare say this was for me. You made choices that destroyed me, Ethan. And now you want to stand here and act like you're some kind of martyr? No, I won't let you." The tension in the room was suffocating. Sophia's anger boiled over, but underneath it was a deep, aching wound that no apology could heal. "I loved you," she said, her voice trembling. "And you didn't trust me enough to let me decide for myself. That's not love, Ethan. That's cowardice." Ethan didn't respond. For the first time, he looked truly defeated, as if her words had stripped him of whatever armor he had left. Sophia turned toward the door, pausing just long enough to deliver one final blow. "Whatever danger you thought you were protecting me from, it doesn't matter anymore. You're the one who hurt me the most." And with that, she walked out, leaving Ethan alone in the silence he had created.